Chapter 16. Moon Heist. The iron orchid stirred to life with a deep, resonant hum, casting off the clinging red dust of the bone pit as its primary reactors rumbled awake for pre-flight. Finn was waiting in the corridor outside the crew lounge, tightening the thick straps of his tactical vest. The icy dread that had haunted him since Draven had vanished and was replaced by the crackling, electric focus that always came before a job. He checked the charge on his blaster, sliding it into his holster with practiced ease. The door of the armory slid open with a hiss. Raffi stepped out, looking even more intimidating. The massive weapons specialist was clad in matte black, military-grade ablative armor. A sleek, suppressed mag rifle was slung over his shoulder, and a heavy tactical rig hung at his waist. Yet it wasn't the arsenal that drew Finn's eye. Raffi was hauling a rugged, four-wheeled industrial trolley behind him. Tess and Freya stepped out of the engineering bay a moment later, pausing to stare at the cart. "A trolley, Raffi?" Tess asked, raising an eyebrow as she adjusted the heavy, custom-built fusion shunt strapped to her own back. "I'm a soldier, not a cargo lifter," Raffi grunted, testing the wheels of the cart against the deck plating. "I didn't want to risk the embarrassment of having to carry the machine and finding out it's bolted to a lead base plate. You can put the fusion shunt on this for the journey in, Tess, and we can take the machine out on it when we have it. Efficiency saves lives." "Can't argue with that," Finn nodded approvingly. "Are we ready?" "Amara says Ellie will open the gate in the cargo bay," Freya said, pointing a thumb down the corridor toward the lower decks. "It's easier for her to visualize the tear in a big, empty space, apparently. She's already down there." The deck trembled beneath their boots. A thunderous, mechanical roar surged through the hull as Jake fired up the sublight engines, wrenching the iron orchid from the rusted grasp of Kiln Canyon. "That's our cue," Finn said. "Let's go." The four of them moved quickly down the companionway, the heavy thud of Raffi's boots and the squeak of the trolley wheels echoing in the narrow stairwell. When they reached the vast, open expanse of the secondary cargo bay, they found Ellie standing perfectly still in the dead center of the room. She was wearing her oversized flight jacket, her small hands balled into tight fists at her sides. She looked incredibly fragile standing in the cavernous, empty bay, but her dark eyes were fixed on the empty air in front of her with absolute, unwavering focus. Amara's voice crackled suddenly over the ship-wide intercom. "Listen up, crew," the captain announced, her tone sharp and professional. "We are about to clear Kiln orbit and burn hard for the Celis sector. We are running totally dark. No active sensors, no comms. If Carver has patrols in this system, they aren't going to see us coming until we're right on top of them." Finn walked over to Ellie, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You doing okay, kid?" Ellie nodded without looking away from the empty space. "I'm practicing, finding the feeling of the room." "How exactly does it work?" Tess asked curiously, dropping the heavy fusion shunt onto Raffi's trolley with a metallic clank. "Are you opening a door here and a door there and connecting them?" "No," Ellie murmured, her brow furrowing slightly as she tried to explain. "I don't open two gates, I only open one. But the one gate is in two places at the exact same time, like folding a piece of paper so two dots touch. Once I find the feeling of the cell, I just fold the dark until it touches this room." She let out a small, shaky breath. "This should be easy compared with opening a gate big enough for a ship. I just need to concentrate." Tess frowned thoughtfully, tapping a small, matte black AI splicing unit attached to her belt. "Ellie, in the cell where you're dropping us, are there cameras?" "Yes," Ellie replied without hesitation. "One looking at the bed. It's mounted right above the door I walk out of to go down the corridor to the machine. And there are 2 cameras in the corridor outside, one at each end. Tess nodded, her fingers dancing quickly over the interface of the small black box. Okay. Ellie, I need you to open the gate in the wall directly below that camera inside the cell. Can you do that? Yes, Ellie said. Good. Tess grinned sharply. If you drop me right under it, I can splice into the camera system before they even see us. This AI unit will clamp magnetically to the wall behind the camera housing. It'll project a false image feed, a loop showing empty corridors and kids still asleep in their beds. It'll cover us while we move down the hall. What about the testing chamber? Finn asked, adjusting his blaster. Where the machine is? No cameras in there, Ellie said softly. Miss Church said what happens in there is too top secret to risk recording. Perfect, Tess confirmed. I handle the cameras and the doors. Raffi handles the guard. Finn, you get the kids. Let's make this a ghost run. Take your time, Finn told Ellie gently. We have a while before we reach Salus. The waiting was the hardest part. The adrenaline of the impending heist had nowhere to go, leaving the crew shifting nervously in the dim red emergency light of the cargo hold. After 20 tense minutes of silence, Freya finally sighed. I'm going to get some coffees, Freya announced, rubbing the back of her neck. And a juice for Ellie. If we just stand here staring at the wall, I'm going to lose my mind. She returned a few minutes later with a tray of steaming mugs and passed them out to the team. They stood around the trolley, sipping the bitter brew in silence, the hum of the Orchid's engines the only sound in the bay. Finally, the ship's intercom crackled to life again. Approaching as close as I dare to Umbrix, Jake's voice cut in, tense and clipped. Captain, I'm painting a massive corporate stealth satellite array hanging over the dark side of the moon. If we get any closer, they are going to trip over our thermal shadow. Kill the thrusters, Jake, Amara ordered immediately. Coast us in on maneuvering jets. Finn, we are as close as we can get without ringing the doorbell. It's up to Ellie now. Finn set his half-empty coffee onto a nearby crate. He unholstered his blaster, checking the charge one final time. Raffi raised his suppressed mag rifle, clicking the safety off, and gripped the handle of the trolley tightly. Tess pulled her splicing unit from her belt, ready to move. They closed in, forming a tense armor, silent semicircle around the young girl. All right, Ellie, Finn said softly, the tension in the cargo bay suddenly thick enough to cut with a knife. Whenever you're ready. Ellie closed her eyes. The silence in the cargo bay stretched, thick and suffocating. Finn gripped the handle of his blaster, his eyes locked on the empty air in front of the young girl. Raffi remained perfectly still, his massive frame tense beneath his armor. For a long, agonizing minute, nothing happened. Ellie's brow furrowed, her small face tightening with intense concentration. Her breathing grew shallow and rapid, but the air in the cavernous hold remained completely still. The dull red emergency lighting cast long, unmoving shadows across the deck plating. Finn exchanged a quick, worried glance with Tess. Was she too far away? Had Athelgard moved the facility or changed their routine? If Ellie couldn't find the room, their entire plan fell apart before it even began. Suddenly, Ellie gave a small, sharp start, as if she had just noticed a subtle shift in the air. Her eyes remained tightly shut, but her posture straightened, leaning slightly forward. I found them, Ellie whispered, her voice barely a breath. They're sleeping. Finn felt a cold prickle of anticipation race down his spine. He tightened his grip on his blaster. "Get ready," Ellie added quietly, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "And try not to make much sound." The air in the center of the cargo bay didn't tear or explode. It simply began to fold. It was a deeply unsettling, completely silent process. Finn watched in awe as the empty space directly in front of Ellie seemed to buckle inward, pulling the red light of the cargo bay into a sudden, deep, swirling pool of absolute pitch-black nothingness. There was no crackle of energy, no mechanical whine like the artificial portals. It was an organic, terrifying manipulation of reality. The blackness spun, widening rapidly until it formed a ragged oval tear roughly 5 feet high and 3 feet wide. Then, in an instant, the blackness vanished, replaced by the harsh, sterile glare of blinding white fluorescent light from the Athelgard base. The gate was open,